Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to learn about variables. Let's first see, what is a variable? A variable is a reference to data value, also called as information, stored in memory. Generally, programs are written to perform some operation on data. Variable helps us to refer those data from within a program. Let me explain this with an example. Let's assume we are adding two numbers, say, 20 plus 30. Here the numbers 20 and 30 are data and the symbol plus denotes the operation, addition. When we add, we get the result 50, which is also a data. If we write a program to perform the same addition, we should be able to refer those information. Variable serves the purpose. Let me write the program and show you. Java is statically typed language. It means, every variable has to be defined before it is used. The syntax for defining a variable is type of the variable, space, the name of the variable. Here, I have declared my variable as integer, telling the compiler that this variable number1 is going to store a numeric value. We will learn more about different data types in my next video. Java is strongly typed language. It means, a variable must be declared with a data type, indicating what value it can store. I have now defined two variables, number1 and number2. Since both the variables are of same type, we can also define them in single line, like this. But for better readability, it is always recommended to declare one variable per line. Let me assign the values to them. Equal to operator is used to assign value to a variable. We can club the declaration and assignment together in single line, like this. Now I am defining the third variable to store the result of the addition. Let's print the output stored in the variable to the console. Basically, we can access the assigned values of a variable just by using the variable name. Wherever a variable is referenced, it is replaced by its value at runtime. Number1 will be replaced by its value 20 and number2 by 30 and the result by 50 when the program runs. Depending on where a variable is defined within a class, they are classified as class-level variable or static variable, instance variable or non-static variable, local variable and parameter. Let's start with instance variables. Instance variables are used to represent the internal state of an object. Each object will have its own copy of instance variables. These variables are also called as non-static variables. Let me demo this with an example. I am going to create a new class called Notebook, with a state, number of pages. The number of pages could vary for each notebook instance events, declaring this as an instance-level variable. Instance variables are declared inside the class, but outside of any block or method. The syntax for declaring an instance variable is an optional access modifier, followed by the type of the variable and the name. We can discuss about different access levels and modifier in a separate video. I am going to initialize this instance variable in the constructor, so that the number of pages could be set when an object of notebook is created. Let me add a getter method to access the value after creating the instance. The word object and instances are interchangeable. Let's create instances of notebook and verify if they retain their own copy of this variable. I am creating an object called Notebook1 with 100 pages and a second object called Notebook2 with 200 pages. If I go and access the instance variable, number of pages on these objects, we can see them maintaining their own copy. Let's remove the initialization logic in constructor and see what value I get. Without any explicit initialization, we get the value 0. This is because all instance variables gets a default value if not assigned a value. The default value is decided depending on the type of the variable. Since this variable is declared as integer, it got a default value of 0. We will see more on the default values in our video on primitives. Let's move to static variables. What if we need to keep track of number of notebooks created? In this context, we cannot use an instance variable, because the count of number of books created is not a state of a notebook object. It has to be maintained at the class level. Static variables are made to serve this purpose. Static variables are class-level variables, and its value remains the same for all objects accessing it. Similar to instance variables, static variables are also created inside the class but outside any block or methods. The syntax is also pretty much the same, except the additional keyword static. I am going to increment the static variable value by 1 every time a new object is created. So I put this increment logic inside the constructor. As we know, constructor gets called each time the new object is created. Let's print the value of this static variable and see if we get the count. Before creating any instance of this notebook class, the count says 0. Similar to instance variables, static variables also get its default value when not initialized. We can see the count increasing as we keep creating new instances. Both static and not static variables can also be referred as members or fields. They can be accessed anywhere inside the class where they are defined, irrespective of the access modifier used. Let's move to local variables. These are variables defined inside a method or a block, like conditional statements, loops, etc. They are visible only within the block or the method where they are defined. To demo this, I am going to add a method called getTotalNumberOfLines, which will return the total number of lines we can write in a notebook. Here we assume we can write 10 lines per page. Let's declare a local variable and assign this value to it. This local value will be used to compute the total number of lines. Unlike static or instance members, local variable won't get a default value. Java will complain if we try to use a local variable before it is assigned a value. From Java 1.0 onwards, we can use var instead of the actual data type for local variable definitions. With type inference, Java can identify the type of the local variable with enough information provided. In this case, based on the value assigned to the variable, the type of the variable is automatically inferred to be integer. I can run the program to see the product of these two values returned. Let's move to parameters. Parameters are variables used to pass values to a method when the method is invoked. Similar to local variables, parameters are also accessible only inside the method, where they are defined. As of now, the number of pages in a notebook cannot be changed once a notebook has been created. I am going to make a change in the code so that I can add more pages, even after creating a notebook. For this, I am going to add a method called addPages, which takes an input parameter, called number of more pages. This method can be called by passing a value, which will be added to the instance variable. The syntax for declaring a parameter is the same as local variable, which requires a type and a parameter name. Let's call this new method on notebook 1 and check if the number of pages has increased or not. We got the expected output. Apart from variables, Java also supports constants. Constants are variables whose value cannot be changed once initialized. Earlier in this example, in the method to calculate the total number of lines, we declared a local variable to store the number of lines per page. As this value 10 does not change throughout the life of the program, it is a good candidate to be declared as a constant. To make it a constant, we just have to use the keyword final. Once declared final, if we try to reassign a value, Java will complain. Since this has become a constant, there is no need to create a new constant each time we call this method. So, I am going to move this out of the method and reuse it on each method call. Currently, this being an instance level member, this constant will get created for each object, which is also not required. Let's make this little more efficient by making it static, so that only one constant gets created and could be safely reused across objects and all method calls. When we write a program, we need to declare many members or fields, local variables, parameters, constants, etc. It is really important to follow a standard naming convention to make our code more readable. Alphabets, digits, and some selected special characters like underscore, dollar, are allowed in variable names. Below are rules to be followed in naming a variable. Variables names are case sensitive. Variable names generally starts with lowercase. If a variable name contains multiple words, then the first letter of first word starts with lowercase, followed by uppercase first letter of subsequent words without any space between those words. This is called camel case. Though a variable name can start with underscore and dollar, it is not a general practice. Variable names cannot start with numbers, but can have numbers after the first letter. To differentiate constants from variables, the naming convention for constants is to use all uppercases. And multi-word constant names are separated by underscore. With that, we have come to the end of this session. Let's have a quick recap of what we learned in this video. Java is static ally-typed language. It means every variable has to be defined before it is used. Java is strongly typed language. It means a variable must be declared with a data type, indicating what value it can store. Instance variables are used to represent the internal state of an object. Each object will have its own copy of instance variables. All instance variables gets a default value if not assigned a value. Constructor gets called each time a new object is created. Static variables are class-level variables and its value remains the same for all objects accessing it. Both static and not static variables can also be referred as members or fields. Unlike static or instance members, local variable won't get a default value. With type inference, Java can identify the type of the local variable with enough information provided. Constants are variables whose value cannot be changed once initialized. Variables names are case sensitive. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If yes, please hit like button and click on bell icon to get notification when I upload new videos. Subscribe to this channel to explore more on Java and related technologies. We'll meet you soon with my next video. Till then, bye bye from Yuva.